Shall I and thy mother and thy brother indeed, son, come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? Look at this. I want you to pay attention to this very closely. And he told his father, and his father, brother, and his father rebuked him. What does rebuke mean, huh? What does rebuke mean? Huh? Do you know what it means to be rebuked? Huh? How about that? Have you ever been rebuked? I have. Or perhaps you have. Rebuked. You mean you are told you don't know what you're talking about. What you talking about? You don't know what you're doing. Has anybody ever told you that? Shut up. You don't know what you're doing. Huh? How about that? Have you been rebuked? Perhaps we all have. Jacob responds first to his brother's second dream. Even though Joseph was his favorite son, Jacob was bothered by the dream and rebuked Joseph for sharing it. He rebuked him for sharing it. What does God tell us about telling them? I just mentioned it before. Telling everything that's on your mind, what you plan on doing. Some things you need to keep to yourself. Some things you need to keep to yourself. I'll say it a third time. Some things you need to keep to yourself. Okay? It was hard to believe that the next two youngest sons, Joseph, would be the one whom Jacob, Leah, and the 11 brothers would bow down to, no matter how much Jacob loved the boy. Look at that. Even the father and the mother is not too pleased with what Joseph is doing. Okay? Jacob, of course, was no stranger to dreams. He had dreamed as he departed Canaan and traveled toward Haran. That's in Genesis, the 28th chapter. In Haran, he told Rachel and Leah of another dream in which God told him to return to Canaan. Even so, he did not seem to grasp that this dream was more than fantasy or nuptial fabrication of Joseph's part. Dreaming of grandeur. In dreams, I had recently several Christian bikers were at a gas station, my friends on Japanese motorcycles and on a German BMW. I mentioned the origin of their bikes because a group of Harley riders arrived next. The real-life disband resulted in the dream bullies stopping to arrest us, looking to make trouble. My friends backed away. There I was with my Beamer. I curiously told the Harley riders to leave my friend alone and go away peacefully. You ever stood up to someone that was bullying somebody? Perhaps you had a dream about something where you stood up and took care of somebody and protected them. All right, let's go to verse number 11. And his brother envied him. How about envy? Envy is, oh man, that is a powerful thing that will hurt you. You ever heard the thing about sticks and stones make my bone? Ooh, but envy hurts down to the bone. Ooh, have you ever envied somebody? Have you ever envied somebody? And his brother envied him. Here the brother's reaction to Joseph's second dream differs from the hatred that he has defined there before. Perhaps they were beginning to wonder whether Joseph's dreams have some real meaning to them. How possible that they would wish they could be the ones having such dreams. How about that? Joseph's reaction to Joseph's dreams. All right. The emotion of envy suggests a stronger and more significant passion than even hatred. Look at that. The emotion magnifies the possibility that their feeling would spill over into violence. See Genesis 37 and 8. Genesis 37 and 8. Let's look at that. How have you... Do you know that when you get angry... Do you know that when you get angry, brothers and sisters, you can take that anger all the way to murder, to doing a crime. That's how Satan takes over and uses you. He can take you on something that you get so angry about, that you get so mad that you want to kill the person. Let's look at 37. Let's look at what that says. I believe that was Genesis 37 and 8. And let's read what it says. Genesis 37:8. Joseph hated and rejected by his brothers. Looking at this. And his brothers said to him, shalt thou indeed reign over us, or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet more than for his dreams and for his word. They were very angry enough to him to kill him. But instead they decided to throw him in a pit. All right. But his brothers observed this saying. Observe this saying means that Jacob will watch over for one or another, even though Jacob, which Joseph's dream was not, would be fulfilled. This is from similar to Mary's own watchfulness in Luke 2:19. Brothers disband. Shaming Joseph. And it came to pass when Joseph was coming to the brethren that they stripped Joseph out of his coat and his coat of many colors that was on him, that they took him and cast him into a pit. As the story picks up at this point, Jacob had sent Joseph to his brothers who were tending in the herd. Joseph found them in Dothan, close to one of the major trade routes to Egypt. When the brothers saw Joseph approaching, they decided it was a good time to kill him. Watch what happens here. His brothers, Reuben, however, suggested instead that Joseph be thrown into a pit. Genesis 37:12 and 22. That's not in our printed text, but you make sure that you read it. The act of stripping Joseph out of his coat symbolized stripping him of his status as Jacob's favorite. Is likely represent more than anything the brothers' resentment or favoritism that Joseph received from their father. When they decided to pretend that he had died, they actually started pretending they were lying. How about that? When you're angry, you'll cover up your lie and what you did wrong. When you steal, you'll cover up and say you didn't do it. When you kill, you'll cover it up and say you didn't do it. You will lie about it. When they decided to pretend he had died, they used the word pretend, but the word is really lie. The coat became evidence of support of their story. Genesis 37:31 and 33. Their revenge continued when they threw Joseph into the pit, which is probably a dry cistern. In other words, it had dried up. It was one at one time. It was impossible for him to climb out of it. Selling Joseph. Then there passed by Mennonites, merchants. They drew and lifted Joseph out of the pit and sold him to the Israelites. For 20 pieces of silver, they brought Joseph into Egypt. God is planting the seed for a nation. And guess who that seed is? Jacob. Family tree. And Joseph, and sold Joseph. And sold Joseph. God is planting a seed, and that seed, I take that back, is Joseph. Okay. And the Mennonites and Ishmaelites also spell Ishmaelites. Two names of the same group of people. One on the one hand, Genesis 37:36 says that the Mennonites sold Joseph to Potiphar, while Genesis 39 says it was the Ishmaelite. This suggests they were the same people by two names. Similarly, we find Gideon fighting against the Mennonites, Judges, who wore golden earrings because they were Ishmaelites. On the other hand, some scholars suggest that the Mennonites merchants acted as middlemen for the Israelites and were not actually part of the same people. At the best, least the two groups shared Abraham as a common ancestor. Genesis, the 16th chapter. The relative value of 20 pieces of silver is uncertain. Such an amount seemed to be the going price for slaves in the time of Joseph. Slaves. How do you know? What do you know about slaves? How about yourself as a nation? God's people, some of God's people were slaves. The slave price, just 20 pieces of silver for a slave in the times of Joseph. His sale brought monetary profit to the brothers, as well as providing them a way of enacting their revenge without actually killing him. The brothers then slaughtered a goat, smeared its blood on the coat, and tore it up, and presented the coat to their fathers as evidence that the favorite son was dead, killed by a wild animal. Look at that. Went to the extent of killing one of the sheep, smeared the blood on the coat of many colors, and tore it up. as evidence. They made up evidence. See what lying and stealing and envy and jealousy would do? Satan would take you to untold length to cover up your crime. He would take you all the way to the point of killing. When you get angry, make sure that you not dwell in that anger, for it would take you to a dangerous place. Meanwhile, Joseph was taken into Egypt, presumably never to be heard from again. Who suffers from favoritism? We must add this. Listen very closely. I knew a businessman who passed all of his children to follow in his footsteps. All but one of these eminent fathers approved career field. These were blessed with 2 favors, but the one who chose a different way suffered many consequences. When the father died, his estate was divided equally among his children. However, in a final act of favoritism, those who had done what the father had said received their share immediately. The other son found that his inheritance was placed in the investment account, which he received only the yearly dividend. He would never receive the full amount of his share as his siblings did. In Jacob's family, only Joseph was favored. In both families, everyone eventually suffered because of favoritism, whether it has benefited them initially or not. And so it still is. Look at the Trump family, the favoritism that has been shown in that between the sisters and President Donald Trump and all of them. Envious. It's all planted by the wives and the husband and the family. The conclusion, this has been a very powerful lesson. We hope you enjoyed it in regards to what we have been talking about today with this lesson. And it's a powerful lesson of love for one another, biased love. Mothers and fathers showing biased love can lead to envy and hate and destruction and even death. Brothers and sisters even kill each other. Conclusion. Here's the conclusion. Imperfect family, perfect God. Today's tragic episode impressed on us what favoritism can do and has done in families. Jacob showing favoritism to Joseph created hatred in his older son that festered and was mixed with envy, finally erupting in violence. Biased love toward one son resulted in the others starving for their father's favor and taking out their neglect on the object of his affection. Look at that. The mothers and fathers brought strife toward the sisters and brothers by favoriting one another. And guess what? Them brothers and sisters hated that person that the mother and father favored. It is still true today, and it's taking place right now, perhaps in your family. Still, God's sovereign plan and purpose move forward under his guiding hand. Regardless what we plan and how we trickery and underhand and backhand and backstab and kill each other, God's still got a plan in place, and it goes on just in spite of what you're doing, because God's plan will never fail. His guiding hand. God had told Joseph's great-grandfather Abraham and his family would sojourn in Egypt for 400 years. 400 years, Genesis 15 and 13. Joseph was being sent ahead as a kind of point man for his family. Though Joseph saw only the slavery ahead of him, God saw the fulfillment of Joseph's dream and the blessing who would be to his brothers. Okay, and God's providential work through Joseph, we are reminded that God is never thought by the evil intention of a human being. What is going on today in this country will not stop God's plan. Get that. Remember that. I don't care what's going on in the world today, what the Trumps are doing, what the president's doing, what the vice president Pence is doing, whoever is evil is doing. It will not stop God's plan. God's plan will continue to roll on and will be fulfilled. In God's providential work through Joseph, we are reminded that God is never thwarted by the evil intentions of human beings. Though we struggle to see God at work in our trials today, he remains the unseen mover in our lives, just as he was in Joseph's life. I want to leave you with an example. Take a look at this beautiful shirt here I have on. Take a look at that beautiful color. There is something going on behind that. There's a weave behind that, the fabric that's put together that you do not see. The hands of the sewer that put the beautiful thing around there. God